Hey guys, it's Penguin here, and welcome back to another gold making video. In today's video, I am going to be answering your questions. Over the weekend, I asked you guys to ask any sort of questions you have regarding the next coming patch, general gold making things, Dragonflight things, WoW things, whatever you like, and we're going to answer them here. Now, as always, this is going to be a Q&A style video. I'm just going to have some random footage going on in the background, so feel free to listen to this like a podcast and just put me on your second monitor, grab a coffee, and enjoy. And so up first, we have a comment from D, and he says that the market is crazy. Why are tier 1 or tier 2 components actually more expensive than tier 3? Am I missing something? Do I need to start producing these materials? Things like that. And this is a great question because yes, it's very, very confusing whenever a quality 1 bolt is selling for 30 gold while a quality 3 is selling for like 30 silver. And this is really just due to skill and difficulty requirements. I do think the best way to explain this is with visuals, so I apologize if you guys are listening just audio, you might want to pop in for just 1 second, but let's take a look at Wilder Cloth bolts. But this really applies to any sort of low-level reagent. But if we look at Wilder Cloth bolts, which of course is just a standard reagent that all tailors can make, you see that the recipe difficulty is 60. And so how the Dragonflight system is set up is that your skill has to be greater than the recipe difficulty to make sure you're guaranteed the highest quality. So if you are a brand new tailor and your skill is only 5 or 10, you obviously are going to be producing those quality 1s. Then you hit about the 35 skill mark, you're just creating some bags, stuff like that. All of a sudden you can guarantee quality 2, but once you hit 60, then you are guaranteeing quality 3s. And because that difficulty level is so low, 60, that is achievable by basically every single tailor super fast. And what kind of happens is that, now every single tailor, besides the very, very new ones, are producing quality 3 materials, which is the best, but now it's also the most in supply. So yes, the demand is high, yes, people buy quality 3s, but it's so cheap just because it's so easy to craft. And so the opposite happens with those quality 1s. Technically, the only way to create a quality 1 is to drop your profession, become a new tailor again, and then once again, you're quickly going to outskill it. So it's just the fact that the quality 1s have so little supply, people just raise the price like crazy. Now, in terms of if you should try to sell these items, I personally say don't worry about it. 99% of the time, they're not going to sell. Of course, every once in a while, people buy items they shouldn't. It's not a never ever gonna ever happen, but I would not worry about it. It's kind of like when people post transmog for 9 million gold. Sure, you can post it on the auction house, but is it actually gonna sell for 9 million? You kind of have to ask yourself that. So I wouldn't worry about it, and we can move on to question number 2. And getting more into the actual patch 10.1 items, we have a question by Zonarius, and they ask, is there any new gold sync in 10.1? Anything to buy from vendors that cost a lot of gold? And the short answer is no. We're not getting any sort of gold sync. There's no sort of Brutosaur, there's no sort of spider from Legion, anything like that. The only gold sync per se that we have is of course just vendor items, but I would not necessarily call it a huge gold sync. Up next, following with the 10.1 theme, we have a question from a Google account who asks, are the Shadowflame Crests capped per week? So if you miss a week, is it tough luck? Or is it like the old Valor system where it keeps increasing? And it's kind of a mix of both. So there is technically a cap starting the first week. However, I would say it's actually a pretty high cap. And that is 10 of each type of crest per week. Meaning you can get 10 aspects crest, which are like the, mythic level, and you can also get 10 of the worms, which is the heroic, and then etc. But once again, it is a cap. So, if you only earn 5 aspects crest your first week, while somebody earned 10, they technically are 5 ahead of you. Now, the thing is, this is from Blizzard themselves, is that the cap is going to increase over time. I'm not exactly sure how much that is increasing, if it's every single week and by how much, but Blizz says themselves, this is a quote, by week 6, it's going to be so high that even if you needed a crest for every upgrade, you'll be able to earn all the crest you possibly need in a week. So I would not worry about it that much. They're trying to make it casual friendly, so I would not try to grind out every single crest unless you just have some big plans, but I wouldn't stress about it that much. Up next, we have a question from Thera, and they actually have 2 questions, but I separated it out. The first question they have is, are there any currency changes or anything being reset that should be used prior to patch? And honestly, I have to admit, I am not super involved in the PvP scene or, Mythic Plus scene, but to my knowledge, nothing out of the ordinary. Just a heads up, Valor is being removed. Valor is being replaced with the crest system we just talked about. So if you do have leftover Valor, you might as well use it. Now, to my knowledge, there's nothing to buy in terms of materials or anything like we had in Shadowlands. You could used to be able to buy bags of lightless silk, stuff like that. That doesn't really exist. So if you have gear to upgrade, you might as well, but that is something that is going to be going away. Also, another heads up, the merit tokens from Season 1, which you can buy, Sparks, Primal Chaos, the socket things, that's also being replaced with a new Season 2 token. But yet again, you can't really buy anything special. We're getting a new Spark in Season 2, so Sparks of Ingenuity is necessarily not that great, but you could buy it if you want to, save it for patch 10.1 to help upgrade a profession. Might as well spend it. Also, if you just want some raw gold, you could buy it, or you could turn it into Primal Chaos, because Primal Chaos is becoming a vendor item. The only thing I wouldn't suggest is the socket items, because those sockets will disappear once you upgrade it to Season 2. Up next, I've kind of just formed 3 questions into one topic because they all kind of ask the same thing. And these are by Alexandru, Pause, and Thera. And they ask, are there any investments for some gold making before 10.1, just like Gem Dust in 10.0.7? They also ask, what would you consider the first steps to be once you enter 10.1? And also any sort of to-do list before 10.1. Should we gear up? Should we hoard resources, level alts, etc.? And so I do just want to preference, I do have a prep for 10.1 video, so if you do want the most knowledge possible, I highly recommend checking out that video, but I'll kind of just sum that up if you want some quick points. Firstly, in terms of what to do before 10.1, the main things you're going to want to do is level any sort of character to level 70 that you plan on getting the new recipes with. Many of the new recipes are locked behind a bartering system, which comes with the new zone. Therefore, if you kind of want to interact with that system, you have to be level 70, at least it's very encouraged, or you're going to have a hard time killing things, etc. So if you have some ults laying around that you kind of want to advance into 10.1, take advantage of time walking and level them up. Also, just throwing it out there, if you don't have all professions covered already, I highly recommend picking them up. Even if you have no idea what you want to do with them, let's say you just don't have a jewel crafter, you might as well pick it up and start doing the weeklies, because maybe in 4 weeks you get an idea about jewel crafting and you have 4 weeks of points waiting for you. So I do highly recommend grabbing all professions if you haven't already. Also, in terms of gear, I honestly would not worry about it that much. I took a very low level paladin into PTR and I didn't really have an issue. Low level as in item level, I didn't really have an issue with anything. I recommend if you do have some overflow hanging out, then maybe buy some alt catch-up gear from the Forbidden Reach or inside of a Draken. Maybe buy yourself some basic crafted gear if it's a brand new 70, but I wouldn't worry about it that much. And in terms of investments or hoarding materials, I will say this video is coming out Thursday. You kind of are running out of time. A lot of investments have already happened. But keep an eye out for enchanted materials. Crystals are definitely something that people are looking at. Gem Dust also has another possibility of making a comeback due to the Dracothis transmute. Then also anything like Awakens have been very, very high, or any sort of food items, right? Any sort of consumable just in general is going to go up. People need their potions, their files, their enchants, their food, consumables, all of that. So any sort of just basic material has the chance of going up. So if you want to hoard materials, go for it, make some investments, but really anything is looking pretty good. And to kind of sum this topic up, we talked about the before, but what about the after? And honestly, the first thing you're just going to want to do is get all your characters into the cavern. Currently, as of this video recording, there is no skip. There is a scenario that you have to do. There's kind of a starting chapter scenario you have to do to actually get into 10.1. And currently, there is no alt skip. Who knows, maybe that will be hot fixed in, but just putting it out there, you may want to set some time aside to actually do that with every single character. Honestly, it's not that bad. I've done it a few times on PTR. I think it's about 20 to 25 minutes, maybe a little bit longer your first time doing it, but just putting it out there, you're really going to want to get all your characters into the cavern. Oh, and lastly, I think I forgot to mention this, you do have to complete the first chapter of the Forbidden Reach campaign. There's actually only one chapter, but you do have to complete that. You can skip it on your ults, so you should go ahead and do that before 10.1, but if you're weirded out that you can't start 10.1, it's because you have to finish that Forbidden Reach campaign. Then alright, we only have a few questions left, and this one is by Perk, and they say, I only have one character, have been doing decent with cooking and jewel crafting, they are a druid, and they're not exactly sure what profession to pick up. And they're basically just asking, what should they do? And thank you so much for asking this, because this is a common question I think a lot of gold makers get, and honestly, this is probably not an answer that everybody wants to hear, but honestly, it does not matter. In terms of crafting professions as a whole are pretty independent of each other, especially with the work order system. You know, generally with BOP items, you would have to plan out, okay, you know, if it's a BOP plate maker, you would want that on a plate character if you are trying to craft your own items. But with the work order system, you can just, you know, order it from your alt and you're perfectly fine. So in terms of what to pair it with, I honestly would just pick up something you'd enjoy. Now, just throwing out my personal suggestions, I'm always biased to tailoring. Tailoring has a lot of beginner options as well as non-beginner options, so that's definitely something to look into. I also really like Inscription. Inscription's a little bit more complicated, just due to the system it's laid out with, you know, milling and processing all those inks, but I do think it's a great profession. But honestly, even engineering is something I recommend, so I would just pick up something that you're interested in and go from there. Technically, the only thing I would not like to recommend, even though you say don't gather, and this is just kind of a PSA to everybody, I don't recommend putting a gathering profession with a crafting one. Normally, what I like to do is have a personalized gatherer that has mining and herbalism because they synergize really well together. A lot of people like to go the route of putting their alchemist on an herbalist because alchemy uses herbs, or putting a miner on a blacksmith because, you know, blacksmiths use ore, but generally I would try to keep them separated. Now, of course, there's 3 gathering professions. There's skinning, mining, and herbalism, so you're probably going to end up one paired with another. That's completely fine, but I recommend putting mining and herbalism together if you are making a gatherer. Then the next order questions are kind of just more generic questions, not really about 10.1 or Dragonflight in general, but we have a question from Coder Nerd who says, do you have a guide for low pop servers gold making, transmutes rarely sell, 0 public orders, etc.? And first of all, I guess I don't really have a guide directly for low pops, but the good news is that low pops nowadays is very similar to high pops. Now, many of you are probably like, whoa, Penguin has lost her mind, what is she saying? But with the region-wide auction house, anything that stacks is region-wide. So let's say you're on a super low pop server and you're trying to sell Awakened Fire. You are selling Awakened Fire to literally anybody on the region. They can be on Area 52, they can be on another super low pop server, they could be on my server, they could be on Illidan, etc. So in terms of that, a lot of markets are just kind of the same around all servers, right? All potions are the same, all cooking items are the same, all enchants are the same, stuff like that. So honestly, what I would suggest to you is probably focus on those stackable markets, right? Things like armor, bags, etc. I do still recommend selling, but that is going to be a server-side thing since it doesn't stack, so you could see less frequent sales, but you could also see more profit. So if you really want some fast sales, picking up cooking, picking up, tailoring and selling bolts, or picking up inscription and selling inks or missives, stuff like that, region-wide items is going to make you probably a lot of gold, less margins per item sold, but you're going to sell a lot more in terms of quantity. Then our final question, actually our second to last question, is from Jeff. And this is kind of a fun question, and he asks, what is my wish list for crafting in the next expansion or release? First of all, thank you for asking this question. It definitely made me think, and I know this is technically not exactly crafting related, but the first thing that came to mind whenever, I read this question was archaeology. And I know archaeology is a meme at this point, right? Archaeology, just rest in peace archaeology. But if they could bring it back and make it kind of tie into other professions, I think that would be super cool. Right, once again, this is not really in terms of gathering, but right now we kind of have 4 gathering professions. We have, of course, the main ones, skinning, herbalism, and mining, but we also have fishing. And it would be really cool if archaeology could become a pair of that. So, you know how traditional archaeology works, but instead of just getting collectibles or something like that, maybe you uncover bones, and bones are used in leatherworking recipes. Or, you unlock bones again, but that's used just in different, armor crafts, maybe some sort of bone stew from cooking. I have no idea. But I think the revival of archaeology would also be awesome. Also, just take professions, take gold making out the window. Archaeology, I have a very fond memory in Legion, back in Legion when I first started gold making and kind of getting more into the complexities of the game. I did the spirit quest for archaeology. That gets you the spirit moose. I really should know that name, but that is just something I always remember, and I wish there was more of that. So archaeology would be super cool. I also hope that they continue the crafting system of Dragonflight. I know that's kind of a hot topic, but I really like the multi-craft system, resourcefulness, inspiration, the new UI. I even like crafting orders, so I hope they don't just kind of throw it away or kind of kick it to the side and say, you know what, I don't really like it. I hope they continue with it, build off specializations, all of that. So I guess that's my wish list. I don't know if that answers your question exactly how you wanted, but come on, archaeology. I believe in you. And also, you do have a second question about, what profession you recommend. I'm going to kind of tie that back into the question about jewel crafting. I honestly recommend anything in terms of crafting. I honestly would just say stay away from alchemy as your first ever profession. There is gold in alchemy, but it's very, very hard to get to, so it can be very discouraging if it's your first ever profession. So if you're trying to get into crafting, pick up anything besides alchemy. I also recommend cooking. I have a full cooking video I'll have linked, just because it's so simple and it doesn't take up a spot. It's literally just, why not? Like, there's no reason not to pick it up, basically. But yeah, I hope that answers your question, and thank you for that. And so this brings us to our final question, question number 9, and this is from Seeker Yeti, and they ask, am I the best moderator? And yeah, guys, that is it for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. I know Q&As, some people like them, some people don't. Whether I was on your second monitor, whether you were listening to me in the car, whatever it is, I hope you got some value out of it. To everybody who submitted their questions, thank you so much. Also, to the people who left comments and suggestions that weren't exactly fitting into the Q&A style, I did read those. I have, kept them in mind, so just throwing that out there. I did see everybody's comments, and just thank you guys so much for submitting them. As always, feel free to leave your responses in the comments down below. Let me know if you agree, disagree, maybe I forgot something. We're going on 30 minutes right now. I'm just rambling, so I probably left something out, so feel free to remind me. And yeah, guys, as always, thank you so much. If you haven't already, leaving a like on the video, subscribing would be amazing. Come on, you made it this far, you might want to come back anyways. But that's it for this video, and as always, everybody, have a good day.